Hey everybody, welcome back to another video here on the channel. We're back with some first impressions on two new volume 1s that I recently read, and of course I wanted to talk about it with you guys. We have Firefly Wedding from Viz Media. That one is written by Oreko Tachibana, and from Yen Press we have the release of one of my most anticipated manga of 2025, Hell is Dark with No Flowers, volume 1, art by Ruka Todo with story by Yoru Michio. So let's get started. First, we're going to tackle Firefly Wedding. I didn't know too much about it. I went in mostly blind, but had some good recommendations from people, and I wanted to try it out. Now, this story takes us back to the Meiji era, and we follow the character of Satoko. She is a young noblewoman, part of the Kiriga family, and unfortunately for her, she is suffering from a mysterious illness, a heart condition that has shortened her lifespan. Doctors say she won't reach adulthood. Right now, at the beginning of the story, she is 16, if I remember correctly, and she has somewhat of a pessimistic outlook, but is still willing to march forward and find a suitable husband to continue the legacy of the family and honor that tradition. She is determined, and I think that is one of the defining qualities of Satoko that I really liked when I read this first book. We see this in the beginning when there's an argument between Satoko and her sister. Her sister is claiming and teasing our main character on how her potential husbands have turned her down once they find out about her condition, to which Satoko gets upset and reminds her that she's fine-tuned her looks, manner of speech, mannerisms, and behaviors to be like the optimal bride possible so that she's not a burden to her family and fulfill her part. Whereas her sister, well, she's skipping classes and not being too smart about things and relying on her looks when apparently that's all she has left. So it's that resilience that even in the face of potential death, she can still march forward and make something of herself. I think that is a wonderful trait for a protagonist. So on a particular day at the start of this book, Satoko decides to venture into town to buy some things with her bodyguard. He leaves her unattended for a minute, and that is the perfect opportunity for these ruffians, these bad guys, to swoop in and kidnap our young protagonist. She is held prisoner in this mysterious place, and they are threatening to kill her. The bad guys have hired this assassin called Shinpei Goto. He is obviously one of the main characters here, and when we first meet him, he is an assassin driven by bloodlust. You see that in his unhinged look and the way that he views his current mission, which is to potentially dispose of the main character. Some of the ruffians can't keep their hands to themselves and decide to assault our main character, and in a last-ditch effort, Satoko decides to risk it all by doing a marriage proposal to Shinpei, the assassin. Now, Shinpei, even though he's crazy, he knows what he wants, and he realizes that there is a manipulation here of emotions, and I do think that is one of the key themes of this first volume here and the story, where you have characters influencing or being influenced by the manipulation of others in the words that they use to achieve X or Y thing. Knowing that Satoko doesn't really know him, he toys with the idea and eventually goes along with it, stopping the bad guys, taking Satoko, escaping from that prison, and running away. That, in a nutshell, is the story, but the complexity and the richness of this story and the potential that it has for greatness is the wacky relationship that forms between these two characters. Obviously, Satoko does not want to marry Shinpei. It is a political move of her own, and Shinpei is crazy at first, but there's more to him. There's a loyalty there once he realizes that there is a potential there for actual romance. There is a potential there for a relationship to form. He goes all in and will protect Satoko no matter what. And for Satoko, who has been defying everybody left and right, with so many people writing her off as a girl that is going to die young and not going to be worth much because her fate has already been predetermined, determined, she takes this opportunity to sort of just take control over her life and do what she needs to do in order to survive and ensure that she's able to come back home and continue living. And I guess the excitement and the frenzy of what's happened, I should say, sort of gives her a new lease on life. Shinpei at first sees this as trying to toy with his emotions, to them forming some sort of relationship and friendship where he is excited about the idea of finding his other half, potentially running away together and building a life for themselves outside of the hubbub of the main city. But obviously there is a morality issue because he is an assassin and has that crazed bloodlust to him that propels him to be a morally ambiguous romantic lead. One of the cooler aspects of this book that immediately hooked me was the art. This looks great in my opinion. There are scenes, especially with Shinpei's movements and action scenes with his sword, that look really badass. And the character art for Satoko looks gorgeous. There's one specific panel that has been pulled by everyone on YouTube, and it's when a blood-splattered Shinpei is hugging Satoko. That sealed the deal for me on how great the artistry in this book is. I can't wait for more story with the upcoming volumes. So definitely do recommend it if you want a nice period piece romance with a twist and some interesting action set pieces. It's a nice combination of the three. So if you like that sort of thing, you'll be right at home with Firefly Wedding. Now the next book that we're going to talk about is Hell is Dark with No Flowers, Volume 1. This is one of my most anticipated books. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is based off the light novel of the same name, and the manga was one of those yokai series that I really wanted to check out, and definitely did not disappoint. I loved this book so much. I knew what I was getting myself into compared to Firefly Wedding. I knew the overall premise of this. However, I was not expecting this one to be as dark as it is. In it, we follow the character of Seiji Tono, a neat character. He doesn't have a lot going for him. He's sort of given up on life, so he's just going through the motions of living in net cafes. He abandoned his family, doesn't want to be a burden to them, so he's sort of become a social outcast, not really studying or working, and we see that a lot in Japan. That's a thing that you can find out more info on. So Seiji has one particular condition that makes this a mysterious and interesting story. Seiji is able to see on the reflection of liquids and glasses, windows and such. He's able to see these mysterious creatures. On one particular day, he stumbles upon this Western looking mansion in an undisclosed space, and there's a maid that leads him to the owner of this mansion, a beautiful young boy named Shiroshi Saijo, or at least that's what he calls himself. Saijo reveals to our main protagonist that ability of his, of seeing these monsters, isn't a fluke, isn't him going crazy, because previously nobody would believe him, and it has to do with yokai, which is where I come in, because I am a huge fan of this stuff. The character of Saijo states that he's running this proxy service and it is immediately censored. We don't know what type of service it is. Right there, they get a visit from another lost individual that happened to stumble upon the house. This young woman who has a case of this stalker who is sending her death threats via email because she runs an internet blog. Saijo and Seiji decide to take on the case. Saijo takes our main protagonist under his wing as an assistant. Aside from being able to see these creatures, Seiji is also able to view people as these monstrous, dark creatures as well, to which Saijo explains that he is seeing people manifested as actual yokai. Seiji remembers from his youth that he saw shattered glass falling from the sky when he was a young kid, and glass pierced his eyes. Nobody believed him, it hurt, but he didn't have any injuries from this event. Turns out that he might have been afflicted by this magical mirror, which lets him have this ability or power, if you will, of spawning the true nature of people. So going back to the case, now the manga becomes a mystery solving story, and yokai are involved. In that, Seiji sees the young girl that came in as a particular yokai, to which Saijo replies that that has a meaning to it and explains the lore behind the different yokai, which I thought was great. It's a nice way to introduce the concept to people that might not be familiar with the world of yokai and how our main character is able to spot them. Saijo now basically wants Seiji to hang around and spot the different clients that come in and see if they have an alternate appearance to them. Now, like I said, this is a dark story. The cases are brutal. They involve murder, suicide, violence, and all these dark topics that might not be for everyone. But if you're in for a darker supernatural mystery story, I think you will enjoy what this manga has to offer. The big plot twist, I guess, I mean, it's not really a spoiler because it's volume 1, but I will reveal it, so if you want to skip forward, that's okay. The big twist for this series is that the main character keeps asking, like, how do you know about these yokai? How do you know about these powers and being able to see these things? And how do you influence these characters and know so much about them? Turns out that Saijo is running a proxy service to hell, and his house mansion is sort of that outdoor gate to hell where he can judge potential sinners and send them to the underworld. So every couple chapters we get new cases of people doing horrible things and the mystery behind a particular murder or an assault or something that happened to an individual and how they react to it, if they're telling the truth, if they're lying, and how they might be judged when the mystery is solved. The art on this thing is great. I love the attention to detail with the yokai reinterpretation, if you will. It's not like you're seeing actual yokai, it's the sinners being represented by these fantastical creatures. Yokai are ambiguous, they are not necessarily evil nor good, though they do evil things to torment people, but there are cases where yokai can be good and they're just pranksters and stand right in the middle of the moral ambiguity scale, if you will. But I think the art reflects that pretty well by showing you the scariness and beautiful nature of these wonderful creatures that represent Japanese folklore so well. I really like the art for the characters. I think they're well drawn. There's a wonderful scope of this story being larger than what it seems at first. As soon as you learn the secrets of what the proxy service is, it opens up to so many possibilities, and I cannot wait to see what else is introduced. I think the series will only be 10 or so volumes, so it's not a huge commitment, and I'm excited for a tight, concise story. I really like the relationship between Saijo and Seiji. Saijo is obviously much older and knows a lot more about life in general, and it's interesting to see how he toys and plays with Seiji's naive nature and not necessarily exploiting his abilities, but entertaining it and teaching him a thing or two about the yokai involved business of the afterlife. So if you like dark mystery solving series with hints of supernatural stuff, yokai folklore, or Japanese folklore in general, I think you will want to pick this up. So there it is, folks, a little bit longer than usual. I hope you enjoyed this video, sort of my first impressions on both Firefly Wedding and, of course, Hell is Dark with No Flowers. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, and being a part of Manga GEEKDOM. If you'd like to join and be a member of the channel, get some cool perks and shoutouts and all that stuff, the link is down below as well. Thank you all so very much. God bless, stay safe out there. I will catch all of you on the next one.